note though that if you play one Otome game and you don't like it, don't dismiss all the other ones, okay? Because sometimes Otome games don't fit how you feel. Like you'll play them and you're like, oh, I don't know how I feel about this, and then you dismiss it, because that's kind of how I ended up not playing Otome games for a while. The very first Otome game I played, I didn't even realize it was an Otome game, so I played like 10 minutes of it. Hello everyone, it's Luli, and today I will be talking to you about best Otome games for beginners. A couple of you have commented on my videos saying, you know, oh, you've never played an Otome game before, but you've decided to pick this one or that one up because I've hyped it up or whatever. So I guess there are quite a few out there who watch my videos without really knowing what Otome games are and where to start, which is why I thought it'd be good to kind of go through, you know, mobile games or PC games and console games, so I feel are very suitable for those who have never played an Otome game before. But anyway, let me start. So obviously the first port I think of is mobile, because, you know, some people don't have laptops, some people don't have consoles, and that's totally normal. But most people in this day and age, I guess, do have mobiles. So I will go through 3 apps that I can think of that will help you kind of enter into the Otome world. Yes, I'm bringing you into the dark side. And then I'll go on to talk about some free PC games, as well as, you know, some of the more long, the kind of games you need dedication for that are available on console. But anyway, so the first app that comes to mind is one that is called Love 365. This game is, well, it's not a game, it's an app that accumulates all Voltage games into one sort of place. The reason why I mention this, although you do have to pay for the certain stories, every week you do get weekly free routes, which allows you to kind of get a feel for what Otome games are. So of course, you know, the sound, the art and all of that isn't as grandiose and good as, let's say, a console game. But if you're, you know, a bit like worried about spending a lot of money on an Otome game, then this is a great place to start, because you kind of, you know, you read a couple of weekly routes every week, I suppose, and you get a feel for, you know, what it's like seeing the main character and love interest develop together as they go through this lovely love story. However, note that there are these love choice routes which you may want to avoid, because in order to get the good ending you need to spend money to pick the love options. Yeah, I know, it's very sneaky. So for that reason I would avoid those routes, but I think this is a good place to kind of start to kind of get a feel for the genre, if you know what I mean. Now, another popular one is Mystic Messenger. This is a very distinct Otome game in the sense that it's kind of like you basically have almost a virtual texting system on your phone. So it's a really distinct in the sense that in real time there's love interests message you, and then you can reply with different options, and then you get different characters, you end up down different routes. It is real time, however, so I have only played a little bit of it because, as I said, real time, so they will text you at ridiculous times, and unless you answer them, you can sometimes end up, you know, going down the wrong route and stuff. So every person I have spoken to has played this game has lacked sleep or has experienced the sleep deprived experience of, yes, Mystic Messenger. If there's one thing you must note though, it is that there are not any games that I can think of. Do comment below if you disagree, but I haven't come across a game that's similar to Mystic Messenger. So if you really enjoy it and you want something like it, you may feel a little bit disappointed in that sense, as it's not like your traditional Otome game. It's not like, you know, you've got like dialogue and you just pick options whenever the story happens. No, it is like a texting system where it's like you're texting your allies. Anyway, now third one is called Honey Magazine, and this is kind of similar to Love 365 in that there are sort of lots of games by OKKO that are accumulated into one app. Every day you get a few tickets and you can use these to kind of read bits of the story, which apparently the tickets do kind of allow you to read quite a bit. So it's not like, you know, some of the other Otome games or gacha games out there where, you know, you have to spend lots of money because those tickets don't quite do it for you, if you know what I mean. The tickets do help you read quite a bit, and apparently, according to my friend who, you know, has played lots of mobage, as they call it, mobile Otome game, they said that it's good for beginners because, you know, you don't really, you kind of automatically go down the happy route. However, if there's one thing to note, it is that I think there are some exclusive routes and maybe CGs, I think, that you do have to pay for. So bear that in mind. However, I do kind of mention these in the sense that it may help you get a feel for the genre, and then if you enjoy that a lot, then it may be a good idea to move on to either PC or, like, you know, jump into console or whatever. So that's the reason why I mentioned these. Now, next up is PC games. PC is very good for Otome games because there are quite a few free options out there that allows you to play like the whole game, as opposed to, you know, like mobile apps where you have to wait for tickets or you have to pay, that sort of thing. And I'm going to mention a couple. So the first one that comes to mind that is a very traditional Otome game is Cinderella Phenomenon. Now this game is about a world in which there were fairies and witches that kind of balanced the good and evil. However, one day Grimm came along and made witches sound horrible, so humans went on a witch hunt, which kind of made the world a bit disbalanced. Now there are these curses called, I can't remember what it's called, but there's this curse that causes people to turn into fairy tale characters, and the main character is this cold-hearted princess, and I do feel kind of sorry for her, to be honest. She's got good reason for being so cold and you know, that sort of thing. But she gets turned into Cinderella and ends up kind of in rags, kind of stuck on the streets, experiencing a life that she has never experienced before. And it is kind of the story of her and the love interest and trying to figure out how to break the curse. And my guess is that she becomes a better person through the process. So that's my guess. I've only played a little bit of the beginning. I'm getting through it. It's a great game. So, and it's free, so it's really good. Another one that comes to mind, and this is a little bit more distinct than your usual kind of traditional Otome setting, is Our Life. This game is very inclusive in that at the very beginning you can choose who, like, you can sort of set your name, you can choose what skin color you are, you can sort of choose what gender you are. It's like, you know, it's all very, you can literally shape the character to be like yourself, as opposed to being given a character and then just being, you know, like, you have to be that, if you know what I mean. And this one is quite distinct in that there is only one love interest. I think there's a second one coming out, I think. You may want to check that on Steam. But to begin with, there was only one love interest, and what would happen is you would be living in this kind of seaside town, and a new boy, which is the Li, will come along, you know, your childhood kind of friends after all of this, but he comes along to the seaside town for various reasons, and then you start to get to know him as the main character. And throughout every single process you have so many questions, and depending on what questions, it's like a personality quiz in Otome game form. It's really interesting. But you have multiple sort of choices every couple of minutes maybe, and depending on what choices you make, Cove, the love interest, changes. So there are different forms of him where as you grow up together, you see him grow up and do different types of personalities. And I think that's great. Now, if there is one thing that I'd be a bit worried about, is that because Cove adapts to how you answer the questions, you end up liking him too much. I'm very scared of that. So yeah, bear that in mind. And again, a bit like Mystic Messenger, this isn't your traditional Otome game. Most Otome games just have a story. It's like a visual novel where you have the dialogue, and then you have options every so often. So this, if you really enjoy this, you may not be able to find another game similar to it. Note that it is free completely. However, there are DLCs that allow you to unlock more sort of like situational events and stuff. So yeah, bear that in mind. And I think yeah, those two are pretty good. also there are loads of indie games out there that are for free, and same goes for loads of indie game demos. So if you're still unsure about Otome games, you should just like go through the demos on itch.io and stuff. I'll put the link below. If you put Otome game in, loads come up, so it's good to kind of explore demos as well. I personally feel like they're quite good in that they do give you a good image of what the game is like without, you know, having to like commit to buying it and being like, oh no, I didn't like this type of thing. So I think they're good. Now, last but not least is console games, and the most expensive and the hardest to kind of jump into, if you know what I mean. Now, I have thought of 3 Otome games I feel are perfect for beginners who have never played Otome games before. The first one that comes to mind is Cupid Parasite. Now, the reason why Cupid Parasite I think is a great game for beginners is because it doesn't really have that much of a bad ending. Like, you can really relax when you're playing it. Not to mention there are signs that pop up to show that you've picked the correct option, which obviously helps when making those decisions, because if it's the kind of game where you don't see that, you can, without realizing, go down the bad route and then feel a bit shocked. So I think Cupid Parasite is good in that sense, and even if you do make a mistake or you're curious about the bad endings, they're all pretty tame. They're like quite funny more than anything. So that's why I think it's really good, and it's about Cupid, who is trying to matchmake. However, no one gets married. She keeps on, you know, shooting arrows and makes people fall in love, but they never end up getting married. She gets very frustrated and then realizes that humans actually have a matchmaking system that they use to get people married. And she sees that and goes, oh my god, so they don't need gods. Maybe I can do it as a human too. And to prove a point to her father, she goes down to the human world as a human and says that she's not going to matchmake using her bow and arrow, but instead she's going to matchmake the human way. And in the process, she's, you know, working hard. She gradually climbs up, and then one day the CEO sort of summons her and says that he will promote her if she manages to matchmake these 5 nightmare of members called the Parasite 5. Now these 5 all have sort of their own issues and reasons as to why they can't seem to find a good fit. They are all, yeah. So it's kind of like one will be, you know, hung up on a girl that he had a crush on, or clearly still does. One can only speak to those or sort of acknowledge those who are of a certain beauty or higher. Another one is only looking for someone sort of temporarily, but also he's obsessed with Greek mythology and Roman mythology and just mythology in general, that he just keeps on going on rants, boring everyone. Another one's just not there because he's too busy. And another one has an issue whereby he just can't seem to like people who are single. He can only like people who already have a boyfriend or husband or whatever. And so they all have their issues, and the CEO is like, if you can matchmake these Parasite 5, then I'll give you a promotion. And it's all about her with these guys, so they kind of end up sort of, those 5 are the love interests, and it's about the process of her trying to matchmake them. I guess in the end they end up together, or not, depending on the ending, but they're all pretty happy. Now, one thing to note is it is quite steamy. It has quite a lot of skin colour, as I say. So if you're not into like any sort of steamy or spicy content, you don't want to hear that noise, you're really not into that, then this may not be the game for you. However, if you're fine with that, or if you like that, then this game is great. Especially if you don't want like emotional shock and stuff, is, you know, primarily comedy, then this is a really good one for you to start with. Now, the second one that comes to mind is Code Realize. Now, this game does not have the symbols to show that you've picked the correct answer. However, the reason why I choose this one as a beginner-friendly game is that it's it's quite mild in the bad endings, but also has emotional ups and downs. So if you're the type of person that wants to play an Otome game or VN where there are sort of emotional moments too, then this one's really good, because there are sort of emotional roller coasters of going up and down, and it's all very kind of cozy and cute. The story is about this main character, Cardia, who has this like poisonous body where if she touches anything, it kind of sort of melts as if her body is acid. So she has to wear like particular clothing and stuff, and it's about her trying to find out why she's like that and why she's not like a normal human. And it's very sweet seeing her and the characters develop together, learning about the characters' backstory as well as finding out the truth behind her body. And I think the reason why this one's so good for beginners is that the love story is very sweet. It's not extreme in that you don't have like passionate scenes, you don't have to witness that. It's a very sweet love story, and the good ending's obviously really happy, you feel really happy for the characters, but there's also the bad endings where it's bad and sad, don't get me wrong, you may cry, but it's not completely like heartbreaking and depressing and the world is like upside down and you feel shattered inside. It's not like that. It's kind of like the bad ending happens, but Cardia is very sort of positive minded, I guess, as she gets on with life. So you feel sad, of course, because it's a bad ending, but you don't feel like the world has ended, or at least I felt like that wasn't the case. It was a good sort of way to experience bad endings for the first time, and that's kind of how I felt. And there is a huge fan base for this. A lot of people liked it. I think a lot of people did play it as their first Otome game and enjoyed it. And not to mention, if you really enjoy Code Realize, there are 2 fan discs. Now fan discs are sort of post-game Otome games that have like bonus content, such as bonus routes, or another character route, or that sort of thing, and there are 2 of them. So if you really enjoy the main game, you'll have 2 more to experience the characters in, and I think that's really great. So that's a really good one. Now the third one is not released yet. I believe it's going to be released in 2023, but this game is Kimi wa Yukima ni Koinegau, or Kimi Yuki for short. This game is about a girl who has the ability to see a bit of thread around people's necks, and it's sort of depending on the color of that thread, it means different emotions. So pink is like affection, I think red is kind of mad, and blue is sad, and they all have different meanings, and but that freaks people out. So she's been living on her own, away from the town, all lonely. But one day the government comes along and is like, we need your help, because she's also able to see these black threads. Now these black threads are they appear as a result of negative emotions people feel, and when too much of it accumulates, a monster gets summoned. And so I guess the government, or whatever it is, sort of realizes the power that she's got, and so sends a couple of people over to kind of collect her and get her, bring her to the city of Edo. And so her story starts of her alongside her comrades to kind of defeat these monsters that appear as a result of people's negative emotions. Now the reason why I think this one is quite a good one for beginners is that don't get me wrong, it's quite predictable in the things that happen, but everything that happens in it is very stereotypical shoujo manga situations. So of course you've got the, oh god, they both fall over and one ends up kissing the other, or they're wrestling and then they one hugs her or something, and these very classic things that happen in shoujo manga will happen in this game. And I'm not gonna lie, the plot is very predictable. I've so far finished 5 routes and there are 6. Every single route has been quite oh, this is gonna happen, isn't it? And it happens. But I think it's beginner friendly because it's very easy. You don't have to think too much when you're playing this game. I think the good and the bad endings are both relatively tame. I would say the bad endings are bad, but because they're so expected, you're kind of like, oh, okay, I thought that would happen. Whereas the good endings are very like classic, and you're like, oh, that's sweet, I'm happy. And they're very kind of mild. And I think it was just it's a very sweet game. You also see the symbols that appear if you make the correct choice. And I guess I kind of like the feel of the classic storytelling of like, yeah, just it's a cute love story. And if you don't mind very predictable plots and you just want something casual, then this may be quite a good read for you. However, it is a historical fiction, so if you don't really like things based in the Edo period, this may not be right for you, because it is all like set in Edo with like the traditional Japanese aesthetic, that sort of thing. I'm usually not a fan of historical fiction myself, so for me it's a little bit of a slow read, but I felt like it's an okay game. And I think for beginners it's a nice way to just kind of get into Otome, because it's such an easy read, if that makes sense. There's no complicated thoughts, it is what it is. But anyway, that concludes my rants on best Otome games for beginners. Hopefully that was very helpful for you if you have never played an Otome game before. Please do kind of, comment below or join my Discord if you have any questions regarding Otome games, and someone will, I'm sure, help you out or talk to you about things. But yeah, that's it. Oh, note though that if you play one Otome game and you don't like it, don't dismiss all the other ones, okay? Because sometimes Otome games don't fit how you feel. Like you'll play them and you're like, oh, I don't know how I feel about this, and then you dismiss it. Because that's kind of how I ended up not playing Otome games for a while. The very first Otome game I played, I didn't even realize it was an Otome game, so I played like 10 minutes of it and I was like, well, I thought this was a game, I didn't think it was just reading, and I dismissed it. And then like a good 5 or even 10 years later potentially I picked up my first full-on Otome game and then thought, oh my gosh, how did I not realize the world of Otome games? I felt very sad about it. So please do play like sort of 2 or 3 different types of Otome games, maybe, whether it be free indie ones or whether you pick up a sort of more console long one. I think it's good to give various Otome games a go. And if you are still concerned, then I do have a number of Let's Plays where I have played a few bits and pieces here and there, and I have multiple other reviews, and perhaps you can check those out as well. But anyway, as always, thank you very much for watching. Remember to like and subscribe if you enjoy the content, and hopefully I'll see you in another one of my videos. Bye!